I don't want to see Poitras on the ice without Brad Marchand. Like, I need them two together. I want Brad Marchand showing Poitras where to eat breakfast, how to work out in the gym. You know, what protein Brad Marchand's taking, I want Poitras taking the same stuff. Like, that, every aspect of Brad Marchand's a hunter. I want Poitras to start hunting. Like, I want him copying every aspect of Brad Marchand's life, and I want them playing on a line together because I just think that's so important. When you talk to these guys, these NHL players, they always credit a veteran.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky, and today I am joined by a first-time guest, Mike Grinnell. Grinnelli, what is up?
Happy to join. I feel like I'm looking at myself here, though. It's a little weird.
So this is what I wanted to discuss, and this is something that you and I have talked about a lot, and I've heard a lot of. I remember when I announced my new job last year, there were people replying like, "Oh, sick gig for Grinnelli," like all this stuff. People think we look alike.
Yeah, it's my whole life I've dealt with. I've always just called it like plain man syndrome. Like everywhere I go, I get told I look like someone. I don't know why that is. I think it's my nose. I think I'm just a guy that like, yeah, we both kind of got the big schnoz where like.
We do have big schnozzes.
It's just like the average white looking guy with a big schnoz. Someone's like, oh yeah, you look like Mike Grinnell. But I feel like we actually look alike. So yeah.
It's similar.
Yeah, when you did announce that job, I started getting tagged and all that stuff too. And I was like, oh my God, I look just like this kid. And then when we met at the Winter Classic, it was kind of like, fuck, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror right now.
It was, and I've got it before. Like I've had people in the past be like I had someone at a UMass party. This was probably like 3 or 4 years ago come up. And they were kind of like looking at me, like they were in a group and they were pointing at me from across. And I'm looking at them like what the fuck, like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, are you Mike Grinnell? And I was like, no, like
I wish I was at that UMass party.
I wish I was Mike Grinnell, but no, I'm not Mike Grinnell. So I got a kick out of that, and from then on, I've gotten it the most. That's like the most. That and Brad Pitt, obviously. That's the other.
Of course. I mean, just to add on to what I said before about how this always happens to me. On Sunday, I got a text, and I was in New York, and I got a text that says, "Pretty bad every time we're both home. We go to Lincoln," and I didn't answer because I'm like, I'm not at Lincoln. And then the next text is, oh, your legit doppelganger is at Lincoln. And I'm like, every weekend this happens to me.
It must be Marinofsky.
It is, yeah.
It was not me, but I would love to see this person because that'd just be another. You're right though. The plain man syndrome type thing, I guess hits us. So, yeah, it's been a while, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon.
No.
So the Bruins 6-0. Start the year. I want to get your initial thoughts on sort of the first 6 games, what you think of this team, and where you're at with them.
So it's tough. I'm so happy. Like that 6-0, it's a start that probably no one saw coming, except for me. But they haven't really played anyone good. Like they played outside of the LA Kings. Like we got to be honest with ourselves here. They haven't played anyone good. So as much fun as I'm having on Twitter and with my boys, and like we have to be realistic because at the end of the day, like I mean, they're playing the Chicago Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. And
the Sharks are terrible. Oh my God!
I think they might be the worst team in NHL history, or one of them.
They're on track to do that because you look at that roster when they're playing the Bruins and it's like, who do you have outside of like Mike Hoffman? I mean, there's just
Couture. They got Logan Couture.
Someone's going to overpay for him.
Yep.
Someone's going to overpay a lot for Logan Couture. But continue.
Yeah, it's just so my overall thought is I'm over the moon right now with this team. I still think you can see the flaws. I still think like let's look at the centers, right? So like Poitras has been an awesome addition, right? 19 years old, He looks incredible. But they still need center help, I feel like they still could use help up the middle. We haven't seen much offense from Zacha. But again, like I'm being nitpicky. I'm over the moon with this team right now. I mean, Matty P, the potheads, like this has just been incredible to watch. But we have to keep ourselves realistic and know like they haven't really played anyone good.
That's the thing, and I think like it has been best case scenario so far, right? Like you're 6-0, you've won every game. Now they haven't looked good in every game. That San Jose game, they didn't look great. Sunday night game against Anaheim, they deserved to lose. Like there was all those things kind of wrapped into one with that. But so far, I mean, you look at like Poitras, right? Like Matt Poitras looks legit. Like that kid is a top 6 center in the NHL, and he's 19. And again, I mean, he's got 3 games left, including tonight. So we're recording this Thursday, including tonight against the Ducks. So another tomato can team. just all they have not played an Eastern Conference team yet.
Yeah, which is so crazy that like that's how the schedule works. Where like we're not even in November. The Bruins have played the Chicago Blackhawks twice, but they haven't played a divisional game yet. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't like it. I don't. Like, those games should be sprinkled throughout the year, and they shouldn't all be at the beginning. No more Connor Bedard, so there's that.
It's like we already blew our Bedard load. It's not even November yet.
Yeah, what have you thought of him? Because you're a national guy with Spittin Chiclets. Like, what have you thought of Bedard so far?
I think he looks incredible. I think he's a... Not only does he have the skill, but I think his hockey sense is just out of this world. Like he just the puck finds him, and when the puck finds you like that, it's like you're putting yourselves in the it's not just ironic the puck always ends up on his stick in a shooting position. You know what I mean? Like he's putting himself in those positions to be successful. So I'm Blackhawks fans should be over the moon with him. I think he has to work on his skating a bit. But yeah, at the end of the day, he looks incredible.
Yeah, I think the shot is just elite, the release, and as you said, the hockey sense. I also think there's nobody on that team. Like that's another roster that is not good. Better than the Sharks, but I still think still a brutal roster.
Terrible.
Up and down, and the coverage of him is hilarious. I mean, the poor kid's got interview after interview after interview after this, which makes sense. I mean, the NHL wants to market their next up and coming star. He's in Chicago. Like I get that. I feel like they might have felt like they missed the boat with McDavid and Edmonton for a bit there. So I mean, I understand what they're doing with Bedard.
Like I've kind of had it with everyone like ripping on the Bedard coverage. It's like for years and years and years, it's been like, we need players to put themselves out there more. We need the face of the game we need McDavid to be going on ESPN and doing it. And then we get a kid who's willing to do it. And everyone's like, oh, he should be focusing on hockey. This is too much. It's like, shut the hell up. Like we finally got a guy that's willing to do things like go on the Pat McAfee show. You know what I mean? And in the middle of the day, like that makes a difference. That helps grow the game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because coming on Spittin Chiclets, that's one thing. Like we're a hockey-centric podcast. We have a niche crowd. But when you do things like
a big niche crowd, but
it's
big,
fans. Yeah. But when you do things like do ESPN interviews and go in commercials and go on the Pat McAfee show in the middle of the day where every bar and restaurant and barbershop in the country has that on, that makes a difference. And actually, it's funny because we were in Boston last week. I was at the Newton, the Newton Sheraton right over the Mass Pike there.
I live near there. I live kind of near there.
I used to live near there too. But I was sitting in there because we were filming a video at BC. And long story short, I was sitting there by myself and I was just having a drink. And 2 guys were sitting next to me. And one guy walked in and he was like, how about this kid in Chicago? And the other guy was like, what? And he's like, I'm finding myself watching hockey. He's like, I'm watching hockey. You heard about this kid in Chicago? And my ears instantly just poked up. And I'm like, you haven't heard this kind of stuff since like McDavid and Crosby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like people are turning on their televisions to watch this kid play.
They are, and I also think it's not a bad thing, like prospects-wise. You look at guys like Max Celebrini coming up, Cole Yzerman, James Hagens 2 years down the road, and it's like, obviously, yes, every number one prospect gets hyped, but I think it's kind of a good thing. It gets people to watch. It's new blood. It's someone new to watch. It's a new team having someone marketable, and I think it's a good thing. I agree with you. Like, I want to grow the game. And you see, like, even guys like Trevor Zegras, right? Now, Zegras has some stuff on the ice where it's like, oh, come on, dude. But, like, he is marketable. He does all those things. And you still see people being like, oh, that dude's so annoying. It's like, well, it's someone with a personality. That's not a terrible thing.
You know who? It's. I feel like a lot of
same
the
with
time,
Pastrnak. Same Pasternak's another
Agreed.
guy like that.
I feel like a lot of the time it's the old heads or just nerds that are coming at guys like Trevor Zegras. Like Trevor Zegras is so good for the game of hockey. The way he puts himself out there, he's laughing on the ice. He's
in Anaheim too, a market that you normally wouldn't care about.
He's willing to get mic'd up whenever. He's willing to, do commercials and all this different stuff. Like he's so good for the game of hockey, and anyone that like has an issue with him is just they got a big load in their pants.
Yeah, I've never understood the hate with that. It's like we have all said, players need to show personality, and also credit to like Sidney Crosby for doing all that stuff with Bedard, right? Like that's an older player in the league who's the face of the league. Good thing that he kind of did all that stuff. I was reading Emily Kaplan yesterday on ESPN, and she was saying how, credit to Connor Bedard and these guys around him for having that access, for doing an interview in the first period, in the second, and doing stuff like the McAfee show, because again, it grows the game. So I'm all for it. And I'm curious, like with Poitras, because Poitras obviously is the talk around here. He's the next guy around here. It is cool to see the national attention for a guy like that who, again, in prospect rankings and stuff, even in this offseason, was not a guy that was talked about much. Now he is. What have you noticed with a guy like Poitras getting that national attention?
So just kind of to give you just an overall like overarching like outlook on how I've looked at this situation, my Bruins fandom, my Bruins childhood fandom ended this summer when Patrice Bergeron retired.
This is true.
Something about the team I remember thinking this summer, I just don't look at this team the same way anymore. I don't have that childhood type feeling for the Bruins. I love them. They're my team. I'm still a diehard Bees fan, but you don't have that like childhood, like I watched this guy growing up feeling anymore. But now we've moved into a new realm, which is excitement and youth, and it's like a new type of Bruins fandom for me where it's not that nostalgic feeling of, going to see Patrice Bergeron play with my dad when I was a kid. 37 still doing it out there. That's the right way to play hockey. Like your parents would always tell you, go watch 37. It's the right way to play hockey. But now we're moving into that era where it's like, the kids. We got the kids now. Because it's not just Poitras. There's like you saw Buchagras tweet yesterday, Mason Larrai could be playing, and everyone on Bruins Twitter is like, Larai's coming. Like there's just like this excitement now that we have these kids, which is we've never had that, and that's a testament to the Bruins front office for building such good teams that you weren't able to put young guys in because you're competing for a Stanley Cup. So there was never an opportunity for a 19-year-old Matt Poitras to step into a lineup and get top 6 minutes. But now there is. You know what I mean? Now there are those holes, and it's so fun to watch. Like I was on the phone with Biz the other night, and when Poitras got his second goal, I was like, let's go! Like, fuck yeah! And he was like, how much money do you have on this? And I was like, nothing. I was
not
like,
a dollar.
I was like, not a dollar. And I'm like, I have this new, I don't want to say newfound love for the Bruins because it's different. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
I do because, it's interesting. Like, we were kids, obviously with Bergeron, Marchand, and Marchand's still there, right? Like, you got that. And I was still a kid, and you were still pretty much a kid when Pastrnak was coming up and McAvoy was, coming onto the scene. So I felt like, those are kids. Like, even though they're, around our ages and stuff, I never felt like they were kids. Now, like seeing a 19-year-old Matt Poitras who is still doing college homework for an economics class because he's still technically part of his junior team. It's like, oh my God, like it's a kid. Mason Lowry, same thing. Johnny Beecher is sort of in that category as well. So
Who's been fantastic this
who's great.
season.
I think he's been great on that fourth line. He's what you wanted. I mean, that's what you wanted in
I
that
think
in that spot.
it's very encouraging to see a player change their game. Johnny Beecher was not a fourth line player. That's not what he was drafted to be. That's not what you thought Johnny Beecher would be. You thought he could be maybe a top 6, top 9 center.
He's got the speed for it.
He's got the speed for it, but then the opportunity that presented itself for Beecher was the fourth line center role this year. And every time he's on the ice, I mean, before Lucic got hurt, like that fourth line of him, Lauko, and Lucic, I felt like every time they're on the ice, they were buzzing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I want to continue this conversation in a sec. But first, quickly, a word from our sponsor. All right, quick second here to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So I find what you're talking about with the kids fascinating, because you're right. It's a different feel with this team. That's why, like, Connor Ryan and I were talking about this earlier this week, and it's interesting because, like, you know, when last season ended and that heartbreak happened and Bergeron retires and Krejci retires and you just blow an amazing season, everyone's like, I'm not watching the regular season next year. It's not worth it. And it's like, this is a different team with a different identity, with different needs, and it's just a different crew. I mean, you can throw Swayman in sort of those kids category, in that kids category, and I just, it's a different group, and there's different expectations, and I know they still say cup and all that stuff, but I feel like this is a big, it's not a bridge year, but it's a build year for the future. Building formative early career moments for your Poitras, which again was unexpected. You know, for your low rise if and when he's up this year, and your Swaymans and guys like that, who are going to be kind of fixtures of this team for the long haul. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, it's just it's so fun to watch, man, and it's so different than what it used to be. You know what I mean? And I just think, like, there was so much pressure before. Like, all I wanted was Bergeron to get another cup. Like, I watched for Bergeron to get that cup, and I was told I was told a few years ago by a Bruins player that, I'd say 3 years ago, I was told by a Bruins player that Bergeron was considering retiring. So I've known for a bit, maybe 4 years ago. So I've known for a bit that this day was coming, so I always felt like pressure, because I'm like, oh, this could be it for Bergeron. We need to
the clock was ticking.
The clock was ticking. We need to get one more. We need to get one more. Now I don't feel that pressure. Like, I know we have time here. Like, there's not, the clock isn't ticking now. You know what I mean? So
what about, you don't feel that way about Marchand?
I mean, Marchand's not slowing down at all, though, man. Like, he looks incredible out there. And, yeah, I mean, he's, 36?
Yeah.
So, like, the clock is absolutely ticking. I think he has 2 years of elite hockey left, probably 4 years of NHL hockey left. Mm-hmm. And who knows? Like, he could go even longer now. But I think this team has some time.
I do, too. And that's what I kind of want to get into next, is sort of, you know, should this team, this season, make moves? Because for the last bunch of years, you know, it's been, the window is about to close. They need to make as many moves as possible at trade deadlines and free agency and draft and all those things. And screw the draft picks. We need to add wherever we can. And now we've hit this point with this team where, you know, going into this upcoming draft, no first round pick, no second round pick, unless they finish in the lottery. They finish in top 10, and then they get the pick back from Detroit. But most likely that's not happening. So do you think this team should add? Because you mentioned it. I mean, they could still use a center, right? Like I think Coyle and Zaka, away from the puck and in their own zone and the neutral zone, I think they're terrific. Like, those are two guys who do the little things, who are very responsible, but it's like that production's not there, right? Like the production of a true top six center. And I think Zacha, it'll come, right? You're playing with Pasternak, you know, Marchand on the left, DeBrusk on the left. I think his production will come, but a guy like Coyle, it's just the production's never really been there. Should this team add this year?
I don't think they should. I think let's play out the year. Like we said, it's a fun year. Let's let Poitras get his minutes. Let's because if you do add a center, you are probably taking minutes away from Poitras, which we really do. We want that this year. Like I think we want to see him develop. I think we want to see him get as much ice time as possible. So next year, when all that cap space opens up, I think that's when you make your moves. And if you want to improve the team, it should be done next offseason during free agency. I don't think the team should be trying to improve and jeopardizing the future right now.
My only thing with that is like I feel like guys don't make it to free agency that are franchise altering centers anymore, and that's where like you're like your Mark Savard in 06 isn't there, your Tavares in 2016 isn't there. Like that's where I have it. Like that's where I kind of hit a point with this team where I'm like, what is next? How are you getting? Because I agree with you. Like, is a Poitras-Zacha 1-2 duo your long-term play? I don't know quite yet. I think it's a good thing to have now, and it's a solid thing. But I think long-term, I would like other options there or to entertain stuff. You don't have the picks right now for the draft. So that's, that kind of goes away. Unless you hit on a third or fourth this year, or, you hit on one in the future, which you could. Second round pick in 2022, Poitras is paying off pretty good.
Very true.
But free agency's tough. Like that's just feels like an overpay. And then like trading, what are you trading? Like that's the other thing. That's why I really don't want them to make any, massive moves this deadline. Like they could use a top six winger right now. I think I'm curious to see what Geekie can offer. He seems to be doing pretty well in that spot now. Like, can Frederick jump up? Can Van Riemsdyk hold his own? I'm not trying to give away a lot of future for a top six winger, like a Connor Garland, for instance. Like I'm not beating down the door for that. So I'm curious what your take is on how this team can add next offseason and going forward. Because I agree with you. You do probably need a top six center at some point.
I just look at Elias Lindholm in Calgary and think he would just be the perfect addition.
Wouldn't he be?
He really would just be the perfect addition. I don't think he would cost too much. So yeah, like I look to a guy like that in free agency, but then you also look to, there's some big name. There's going to be some big names out there. Steven Stamkos, William Nylander, Sam Reinhart, Elias Pettersson. I think he's RFA though, but there's going to be some big names out there that you can go get, and it really all depends on like the development of Poitras as well. Like if come the end, like if Poitras puts up 25 goals this season, I don't know if we're having this chat that they need center help.
That's what I keep going back to is like if he works out, right? If he gives you somewhere in the range of 45 to 55 points in year one, right? Which is freaking great for a 19-year-old kid who really, like, we all thought was going to be back in Guelph this year. Like, if that's the case, you can kind of pencil him in as, hey, there's our franchise center, right? Because, like, not only the production, just through 6 games, the little things, right? Like, just being in the right spots, the routes to the net, playing well in his own zone. Like, he's got that perfect blend so far. Again, it's been 6 games, but so far the perfect blend of production, offensive ability, and doing the little things right. I think Jim Montgomery said it in a Behind the B thing. He's like, you have compete and you've got intelligence. And if you put those two things together, you go a long way in this league.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's been very interesting to me is how his peers talk about him. We've seen prospect hype in the past, right? Like, there's been so many. There's been so many guys that have come up, and you've never heard. It's always just the same run-in-the-mill answers from the teammates. Yeah, we hope to get him in there. Hope he works hard. It's a tough game. But with Poitras, it's the conversation's different. Like Brad Marchand comparing him to Mitch Marner. Like things like that when you're like, whoa. I've never heard such praise for a prospect. Like guys aren't just going to throw that out there. You know what I mean? Like, and nobody knows more than the guys on the ice. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if Brad Marchand is saying, "Oh, this guy's like Mitch Marner," he's a lot like Mitch Marner, more than anyone else can tell. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's why you're right in that you do have a future there with Poitras down the middle. Whether he's a future number 1 center or number 2 center, I think they have something there, and it's a godsend. Like, I mean, how freaking lucky are they that in the first year post Bergeron, this 19-year-old, similar to the Bergeron and Krejci, the way he slows the game down, pops up, kind of a year or two ahead of schedule, and suddenly you're in a pretty good spot.
I actually feel bad for him because the amount of pressure now that's on this kid is just immense. It's like he has all of us fucking nerds on Twitter being like, "The potheads, Poitras, our savior has arrived," and like this kid's just a 19-year-old. Like,
when I was 19, I couldn't figure out which dining hall am I going to tonight for dinner. Like, yeah. I had no idea.
And he's got all the pressure of the world on him. All of Bruins Nation saying like he's Patrice Bergeron's replacement. He's the next future 1C, and he's 19 years old. So it's like we do have to pump the brakes a bit. I love this kid, but we gotta. I feel bad for the kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, he's earned this. Like, he's worked hard enough that he's earned the fact that people are talking about him like this and kind of have those expectations. And it's interesting, like, for the future, like, I was just thinking as you were saying the stuff about the centers, like, you could go Poitras, Zacha for the future, but Zacha was pretty damn good on the wing last year. And, if an opportunity for an Elias Lindholm comes up, or, a Sam Reinhart or guys like that, you could always put Zacha on the wing. Like, it's good to have guys who are centers. They can play wing too. Charlie Coyle's done it in the past. So, like, if you really want to go that route, because obviously they have Zacha locked up for, a fairly long time. So, like, you can also do that. But again, I think just the Poitras opened up a ton of options, right? Like, you have Coyle on the third line with Van Riemsdyk and Frederick in the perfect spot for Coyle. And, you a little less pressure on Zacha this year now. So, I think it's worked out. I'm curious, before you go, I want to get your thoughts on the Atlantic, because Detroit's, just kind of, been gangbusters to start, and Ottawa's looked really good, and Tampa doesn't look great because they don't got Vasilevsky, and the whole Stamkos thing is hanging over their heads, and you got Buffalo, and what are your who are going to be the good teams this year in the Atlantic in your eyes?
I just think Toronto is such a wagon this year.
I do too. I think they're so good up front.
They're just so good, and they addressed not all of their issues. I still think goaltending and defense is definitely an issue of theirs. But I mean, they added Klingberg. They got so much tougher. Like, they're not the Leafs of the past. You have Ryan Reeves, you have Max Domi, you have Tyler Bertuzzi now. You have some sandpaper in there that can actually make a difference, can change the momentum in a game, which I just think is so important for the playoffs. So I think the Leafs kind of sit atop the division, and then Detroit looks awesome. They look so good. The Yzer plan is finally coming to be. Mo Seider is just a dog. He's
so good.
He's so good, and I think he took a step or two. He jumped his development a year or two, I think, this year. And that's just he could be a Norris candidate at the end of the year, is how good he's looked. So yeah, Detroit looks awesome.
And DeBrincat, what an addition! I mean, he's come in and just made an impact immediately.
Yeah, and he showed that he's the top line center that he was in. I mean, top line wing. I'm sorry, that he was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And speaking of Chicago, it's interesting. Where's Patrick Kane gonna go? I'd love to know. Everything I hear out of New York is he's not coming back here. It seems like Detroit or Buffalo are the two perfect options for him. You go back to Buffalo, you go back home, or you go to Detroit. You can play alongside DeBrincat and Dylan Larkin. This team is why wouldn't you do that? Do you know what I mean?
I agree, and it's kind of spells bad for the Bruins because he's coming to the Atlantic no matter what. And again, I think he's still terrific. Obviously he came off the injury, but I think it was his representation that released the highlight, the huddle highlight reel skills of his video. But I mean, again, I agree. Like, and also Buffalo is such an exciting team, right? Like to potentially play with a Tage Thompson, or a Dylan Cousins, and you've got just I think they have to kind of figure things out defensively. I think you got to like Deline, Power, Clifton's now there. Like you got to figure that out, and you got to figure out in net. I think Devin Levi is nasty, but I am curious, like what is his staying power in the NHL, and not staying power, but can he consistently be the Devin Levi we saw at Northeastern?
I don't agree, and I remember I said this last year. I don't agree with them throwing Devin Levi right into the fire. Like he was this amazing college goalie, and I get that, but like the NHL is a different game. You can't just throw this guy in. Like he should have been a backup for a year, or he should have played in the AHL for a season. It doesn't make. And I know, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. They needed someone, but at the end of the day, like this guy is not ready to play in the NHL.
Well, look at like the Swayman development path, I think is one of the best, right? I mean, the way that's worked out. Obviously, every goalie is different, but you look at Swayman, and now he was in Providence when they were playing out of New England Sports Center during COVID. So, I guess he kind of got it's like the hockey you and I used to play at New England Sports Center.
I forgot that they did that.
He was playing at like Rink 1 with nobody in the stands, playing like
elite snack bar though. Elite snack bar.
So I'm there a lot now with New England Hockey Journal, and I love when I'm there because the chicken finger, you can get a wrap. Like they actually have a kitchen, so it's big.
Can you still get booze?
You can. Every parent's got a booze. They got some booze.
You gotta drink,
which is a recipe for disaster for a lot of these parents, man.
I know.
Screaming through the glass, but. Yeah, I mean, again, like Swayman's development path, AHL, got called up at the end of the year, was one of 3 goalies. Like he outworked Halak. It was not, it wasn't a guarantee that was going to happen. And he kind of charted his own development path to be the backup to Rask. So like, again, I agree with you. I don't know why you're tossing him in there immediately. I know they made a huge deal of it last year. But
I equate it to like an NFL team like drafting a quarterback and starting him his first year, like
Mac Jones.
But yeah, that doesn't always work. Like you need to develop these guys. It's a different game at the pro level. I'm not a fan of throwing guys right into the fire.
I'm not either. Before we go, I imagine you made some preseason predictions for the Bruins. I'm curious if they've changed at all. I had them at 3rd in the Atlantic to finish the year and out in the first round. I'm curious where you're at with that stuff.
I had them as the first wild card team, I believe. So I think I had Toronto, Tampa, and Ottawa ahead of them.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I really like the additions Ottawa made. I still think they're a great team. I still think they're gonna impress some people this season. But yeah, I think I said it all on Chiclets this summer. I said it in our preseason previews. I said it on TikTok. I said it on Twitter. I said I think the Bruins are going to be better than people think. Just in that, I mean, when we look back on the playoffs, the games Bergeron and Krejci were out, games 3 and 4, I believe. Mm-hmm. That was the best the team looked. Like, so the whole Zacha coil up the middle, it didn't scare me maybe as much as it should have. And then Poitras just coming out of nowhere. It's just been so fun, and I'm having so much fun as a Bruins fan this season watching this team. Like I said, it's just a new fandom almost for this team that it's just been a blast to watch.
It's a new era. And again, I look back, like during the offseason, I kept saying, like, obviously you can't replace the leadership, the importance, the intangibles that Bergeron and Krejci brought, but just look from a point production perspective. Like, is it crazy to think Zacha can put up somewhere between 60 to 75 points? Is it crazy that for Charlie Coyle, this is again pre-Poitras, to put up 45 to 60 points? No, it's not. I mean, you're playing with good wingers. I don't think that's a crazy thing. So I was with you the whole time. Like, this team is good. It's not a bad team. They're not going to suck. Oh, wait, you just went mute. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I have 2 questions for you. So
yes.
1, how many points do you think... Actually, no. I have 2 questions for you. 1, okay. Do you think there's any chance at all that Matt Poitras gets sent back to the OHL?
No. Not in the not no not now. No, God no. Unless I mean, even in the next 3 games, if he was terrible, I mean, I have a tough time believing they would ever do that. You can't. He's too good.
Number 2, how many points does Poitras finish with this season?
I mean, I have him. God, it's so hard to It's hard to put it on a kid, but I'll say like 53.
Ooh.
He finishes with a good a good first season, a strong again because he's playing with good wingers, right?
I got 47. I'm
okay.
Right in that same area as you, though. I think 20 goals, 20 assists, kind of right in the middle there.
And he's a phenomenal playmaker, and he's playing with good players, right? Like, if he's with Marchand long-term, even like a guy like Geeky does help him out a lot and provide, adds that sort of that size, creates a little bit of space for him. Like, I think that's where the 53 points come in. He's also on that second power play unit. So, and that
second power play unit is like almost better than the first.
It is. It basically is. And I think that's where, the power play is going to find itself at some point. They're not always going to, they're going to find themselves. So I haven't, you have him at 47. I got him at like 53 and the 20 goal range. And man, I mean, that is a hell of a first year. I mean, he's already, 3 goals, 1 assist. Is that what he's at right now?
Yeah, I think so.
So, again, 3 goals, 1 assist in 6 games to start your career. That's why I kind of like that they started off with this soft schedule, because it's he is going to get a chance to cook a little bit.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Some confidence.
That game against Anaheim, right? You're down and out. That looked like a loss. They were not playing great. Second night of a back-to-back out west. And, he puts himself in smart positions. That first goal, nice tap in front. Second goal, he was screening the shot, turned around and fired it in. Wins a foot race. I saw Feidelberg tweet, and I might have missed this on the broadcast, before Poitras' goal against Chicago the other night, great work in his own zone to even put himself in that position. He does the little things right. And I think that's where, you mentioned it. There's been prospects in the past that have had that skill, right? That have been skill guys or fast or things like that, but they don't have the compete, the intangibles, the doing the little things right. And that's when that combination of things, I think, is when you sort of start to find success in the way Poitras has so far.
And I want to see, I don't want to see Poitras on the ice without Brad Marchand. I need them two together. I want Brad Marchand showing Poitras where to eat breakfast, how to work out in the gym. What protein Brad Marchand's taking. I want Poitras taking the same stuff. That every aspect of Brad Marchand's a hunter. I want Poitras to start hunting. I want him copying every aspect of Brad Marchand's life, and I want them playing on a line together, because I just think that's so important. When you talk to these guys, these NHL players, they always credit a veteran. Anyone who's had success, they credit a veteran.
Bergeron had Marty Lapointe, remember?
Exactly, for showing them how to be a pro, how to get through these grueling seasons, because when you're a 19-year-old kid playing these 82 games, it's tough, it's long. It's in I remember in the preseason when Poitras was on a line with Marchand, you saw Marchand coaching him up before plays, after plays, going into faceoffs. He's telling him what to do, how to do it. That's so encouraging, because who else would you want? Brad Marchand is one of the best defensive forwards in the game. He can also play. He also has an unbelievable offensive touch to his game. There's no one. I mean, Bergeron would be the perfect person to teach Poitras, but Brad Marchand's a close second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't want to see them apart. I want to see them playing together. I want to see Poitras moving in with Marchand.
And credit to Poitras for also being open. There's a lot of kids who come up who are touted. Again, he's a second-round pick. I still put him in that category of he's still in his draft was a top half of the draft kid. He's a kid who's always been sort of someone that, has done the right things along the way. Credit to him for being open to everything that Marchand and those guys have said and being receptive to it. Because I think there are a lot of young prospects who come up who think, oh, I know what I'm doing already.
Yeah, that
and I think
OHL type kid.
Yeah, and it's that young kind of mind. It's I know what I'm doing. I don't need to listen to a veteran. Who cares? He's been open to it, and I think it's worked out so well for him. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you, man.
Are you still in the locker room and all? Do you still go down and do interviews and stuff?
I go to some home games. I try to get to as many practices as I can because I live pretty close to Warrior. So I try my best to get over there quite a bit.
It seems like they're busting his balls a lot. Like, they're always talking about in the post game, like, oh yeah, we were giving Potsy a hard time about this. Like, I love that, and I'd love to hear, like, I'd love to talk to someone who's in the room and just like, are they busting his balls at all time? Like, when he has the media scrum around him, are they all chirping him? Like, and I hope they are. You know what I mean? Because that just probably makes him feel so much more a part of the team.
It does. And I look at, you even look at like mentioning Marchand with Poitras, and I had this thought from a little while ago, like off the ice, obviously it adds a lot, but you look at on the ice, right? Like, I think Coyle is an outstanding center. He's great in his own zone. As a shutdown center, I think Coyle is perfect, but I think Poitras unlocks an offensive ability to Marchand that I don't think Coyle quite is able to do. And I think that's why I like Marchand with Poitras, because I think the veteran leadership, but also what Poitras can do for Marchand in terms of setting him up, what Marchand can do setting him up. So I love those two. Montgomery's talked all year about keeping two guys together on each forward grouping. I think Marchand and Poitras, to me, should be together.
But also on the other side of that, I think Charlie Coyle is far better suited as a third-line center.
Oh, not 100%.
Like,
yes.
he is the perfect third-line center, but then when you put him as a second-line, first-line, the flaws are much more apparent, where you're like, oh, maybe he could be a little faster. Maybe he could have a little bit more offensive touch. But as that third-line center, playing with Frederick and Geekie, who I think Geekie has looked awesome this season, and I think Frederick's looked great, too. That clip of him calling out England, that was awesome.
That was great. That's what you want.
Who was England calling out before that?
So I was talking about this with Connor. From what I could tell, I think he was trying to get Van Riemsdyk, because Van Riemsdyk was skating out of the frame and was kind of looking back towards him like this as he was skating out of the frame. So my guess, I don't have any like insider information on this. My guess is he was trying to call out Van Riemsdyk. And that's where Frederick came in and was like, no, you'll go with me or nobody else. Like,
I get like the giggles like when I see someone like sticking up for their friend or their teammate, like, no, you don't fight him, you fight me. Like Van Riemsdyk could have just called him like a motherfucker. Like, he could have just said, and he's like, all right, now I'm just gonna get punched in the face. Like, it's such a wild concept to someone who's not like familiar with the game of hockey,
who's fighting all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, I loved seeing that. So, like, the fight was awesome, but then when the Bruins and Behind the B posted that clip of him being like, no, you don't fight him, you fight me, I was like, oh, I fucking love this kid. This kid is awesome.
And what I love about Frederick fighting is a lot of guys fight, and it's just once it's whatever, they fight, they do what they gotta do. He seems to genuinely get angry in his fights. Like he finds that anger that I don't think many guys can grasp, and he just takes it. Like, he doesn't stop throwing punches, and I love that about his fighting. Because
St. Louis kids, man, it's these St. Louis kids. I feel like something about them, like
Brady Tkachuk's fight the other night, that was nuts.
They have like a chip on their shoulder. Like, maybe it's because Big Walt probably taught half these kids to skate. You know what I mean? Maybe that was it. But
also like New England guys kind of have that too, like a Nola Chari, like a Rhode Island kid. Like, remember that fight he had against Mackenzie Weegar a bunch of years ago, where he just like rearranged his face. So like, that's where like it's that St. Louis, Boston, New England, like cold weather, a little rough and tumble, which I think is great. But Grinnell, this has been so much fun. This has been great.
It's a blast,
how much did you? I imagine you love this, because on Chiclets you can't talk Bruins for 40 minutes. Like, you gotta touch on everybody.
It's funny you said that. I was just thinking that. I was like, I'm having a blast right now. I don't get to do this too often and just talk Bruins, which is fun. So this was a blast. I'll come on whenever you need me.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think the fans will be excited to have you on again and again. So thanks for coming on. Before you go, what do you want to plug? I know Chiclets obviously is Chiclets, but anything else and anything with Chiclets that people should know about?
We just released Chiclets TV, which is just kind of like a behind the scenes, video series of what we're working on at Chiclets. Like, the first episode was kind of behind the scenes of the Chiclets Cup and all the workings there. working on a college hockey series that should be coming out soon with Chiclets and Barstool. Haven't really announced that yet anywhere.
Did I see on your Instagram story you were at UMass?
I was at UMass. I was. And I'll say this, Coach Carvel gave us like unprecedented access to facilities, practice, meetings. That video is going to be incredible. Just like the amount of access that Carvel gave us was insane. And the facilities themselves at UMass are just out of this world. They redid everything once they won the national championship. So it's cool to see some money put into an up and coming program. But yeah, so working on a college hockey series should be coming out in the next month or two. And then just listen to Chiclets every Tuesday. It's obviously we have a bunch of Bruins fans listening here, but it's a National League take on the league. And it's we're having a lot of fun doing it. We have some big guests come in. So tune in.
You guys always get some crazy guests. There's always people on, like you had Lucic this summer. He was terrific. Rask, where you asked him about, it's funny. I love Buffs. I love Buffs Pub. Now, every time I go in there, I think just because you put it in the universe that he shit his pants because of Buffs, even though he said he didn't, I still go in there now and I'm like, oh, am I going to like leave here shitting my pants like Tuca, Like,
yeah, that was funny.
That's what I think. But
that was one of those things that kind of just like came out. Like I didn't really like
An intrusive thought came to
it
the
wasn't
surface.
like, oh, film this. Like, I got a funny question. I kind of was just like, yo, like, what happened at Buffs? Like, I heard you shit yourself. So that was kind of funny. But it's the interview aspect of things. It's fun. We take a lot of time and pride, and I have a call today with Biz and Wit, and we're gonna kind of run through who we want to get on in the next month. You know what I mean? Who are some guys that we should seek out? And when we have guys on too, I vet them. You know what I mean? Like we won't just interview anyone. Like a lot of the times I'll send them a text. I'll jump on a call with them. I'll try to get them talking about some stories beforehand and see if they'd be good for the show and fit our vibe.
They got to be interesting. They got to be
interesting. They got to be interesting. And if they're not, it's good to let Biz and the guys know that beforehand so they can be a little bit more goofy and quirky. Maybe they have a few beers before the interview to loosen up and have a little more fun. So I appreciate you saying that about the interviews, because we definitely it's not something where we just are like, oh, let's interview this guy and throw it on the pod. It's something we are very very calculated about.
And I would imagine so many kids coming up now, right? Like you had Fantilli on. I think, did you have Leo Carlson too?
Yeah.
I want to say you had Leo Carlson. Like all these kids coming up, right? Like they listen to Chiclets. They listen to Chiclets at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. So that's like, you're in with them now. You're like one with the kids. And I think that's like, that's what one thing in my job in doing a hockey journal that I see all the time is like covering kids at that age. Like you're getting to know them at a younger age when they aren't famous yet. Like they were listening to Chiclets before they were famous. And I would imagine they all want to come on because they've been listening to Chiclets since they were freaking little kids.
Yeah, Kirby Doc, I think, was a very funny example of that. Like when we had Kirby Doc on when he had just gotten drafted by Chicago, 3rd overall, we were in Chicago. And he came by and he was just like and we're so happy to have the 3rd overall pick, Chicago Blackhawks.
Hell yeah.
This is going to be their future, we thought, their future franchise center. And he brought his dad, he brought his brother because he's like, oh, we listen to you guys every day. Like, we love you guys so much. And we were kind of just like, this is kind of crazy, because usually like in the past, we've had to kind of like ask for favors or essentially beg guys to come on, or but then now as this youth generation has they grew up listening to us, which is crazy to say, they're happy to come on and they want to come on and they know what to expect. And it's actually good because a lot of these kids, this Gen X has a lot more personality than the millennials, than my age, where the Gen X, they know if I say this, I'll go viral. And if I go viral, that means more dough in my pocket. Like, they know these things, which is important. So yeah, it's crazy to like like the Hughes brothers, like they talk about how they used to always listen to us, and like just hearing stuff like that, you're like, that's crazy to me. That like
isn't it wild? And I guess wild for you, because we have similar upbringings. We played hockey growing up. We went to school for media, like all that stuff. And it's like, and you get into the grind of like constantly putting out content. It's just, all right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? You don't think about the impact. You don't think about people actually listening. But it's a big deal. Like, and I think that for you guys have sort of hit that like straight on, and I think it's so impressive to see like how well you guys have done that.
Anytime someone's like, "Oh, I grew up listening to you," I'm like, "You must think I'm such a loser." Like I've said so much dumb stuff over the years. Like you must just think I know nothing.
And you must feel old. Because like you're definitely. Like, oh my God, you grew up. What are you talking about? And like even for me, like some of the kids I'll write about or cover or watch are like 07s, 08s, like 05s, and I'm like, what do you mean you were born in 2005? Like, what are you talking about? So it's crazy to me, but you guys have done such an outstanding job. So yes, you will be on again. This is a blast. I think we could go another hour if we wanted to, but Grinnell, this has been great. And yeah, that's this week's Bruins Beat. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners have a great rest.
Go Bees, baby. Go Bees.
What he said.